everyone. I hope everyone is having a good evening. Sorry I'm on a little bit later, but I had a busy day today, so I hope you guys had a good day. Alrighty. Sorry. There we go. Alrighty. So today we're going to be reading Chapter 12, Part 2. It's called Media-Driven OB Policy. Alrighty, with so little medical evidence to back ACOG's recent revision of its VBAC policy recommendations, it is hard not to conclude that the radical changes in the document were driven by other factors, as I have explained above. The fear of malpractice suit is a big one. The way that the mass media interpret medical studies and confuse opinion with research is another. OB Bruce Flam agrees that ACOG's withdrawal of support for VBAC stems from a couple of anti-VBAC opinion pieces, not research studies, published in NEJM. One of the most influential editorials which attracted sustained national attention appeared in 1999. Written by 3 Boston physicians, it took the Department of Health and Human Services, DHHS, to task for its Healthy People 2000 goal of reducing the national cesarean surgery rate from 21% to 15%. I got hair dye on my arm. I dyed my mother-in-law's hair today. Anyways. The World Health Organization says that the rate should not exceed 10 to 15%. First paragraph, sentence 3 of the editorial reads, "The advantage of a safe vaginal delivery over cesarean are clear. A vaginal delivery is associated with lower maternal and neonatal morbidity, and it costs less." The authors might have omitted the word safe in the first part of the sentence because plenty of evidence tells us that it would still be true without the qualifier sentence. Hi. I hope you're having a good day. Excuse me. The sentence that follows it is the kicker. We contend that these advantages apply only to safe vaginal deliveries, that reducing the rate of cesarean delivery may, emphasis mine, lead to higher costs and more complications for mothers and their babies. The authors then go on for 4 pages pointing to the tripling of uterine ruptures in Massachusetts between 1985 and 1995, without ever considering that the recent changes in practice might be responsible rather than some previously undiscovered weaknesses that suddenly turned up in Massachusetts women's bodies. Please note the evidence I discussed in Chapter 11 that would well have caused the sudden increase in uterine ruptures noticed in Massachusetts and other states mentioned in the editorial, Pennsylvania, New York, and Florida. Most of the increased ruptured rates took place during the period when the OBs were inducing more and more labors with oxytocin, cytotec. Hi. Oh my goodness. Thank you guys so much for joining. So there's more C-sections when women are induced with oxytocin, cytotec, or other prostaglandins, and when many were switching to one layer and suturing, associated with 4 times the rupture rate in VBAC as a traditional method. Nowhere in the editorial do the authors mention that unequivocal evidence points to the heightened risk of maternal death, injury, and illness from cesarean over vaginal birth, or to the gross underreporting of deaths. Instead, they accuse the DHHS, which is the Department of Health and Human Services, of promoting a goal that may, emphasis mine, have a detrimental effect on maternal and infant health. Oh, sorry. I hope, can you guys see me? There we go. No wonder there is so much confusion about VBAC in women's minds. In a November 1999 committee opinion on Cytotec, ACOG, rightly if belatedly, recommended that Cytotec should not be used on women who have had previous uterine surgery, including cesareans. ACOG, however, was not prepared to recommend against the use of other prostaglandins and oxytocin for induction of VBAC labor. In its 1999 bulletin on VBAC. Instead, it deemed close monitoring sufficient in such inductions. The problem here is that there is evidence not totally conclusive but strongly suggestive that using oxytocin with VBAC does increase the chance for uterine rupture. We already know that prostaglandin gels and tampons can cause severe uterine rupture. Conservative practice would mean adherence to basic rule of medical practice enunciated by Hippocrates. First, do no harm. VBAC at the Farm Midwifery Center. Let's see. Excuse me. I'm going to read the rest of the chapter because it's just 2 more pages. So, my partners, so this is VBAC at the Midwifery Center, the Farm, which is a birthing center that Ina May ran. My partners, if I keep looking over here, it's because my windows are open and people drive by and I don't know, I'm nosy, so sorry. My partners and I at the Farm Midwifery Center, FMC, have been attending out-of-hospital vaginal births after cesarean for almost 30 years. More than, more than 98% of the 127 women who tried for a VBAC with us managed to give birth vaginally. Only 4 women required transport to the hospital during labor because we suspected dehiscence, thinning or separation of the previous scar, and possibly an impending rupture. So, out of 127 women, only 4 women got taken to the hospital, which is a super low percentage. Each had her baby by cesarean, and neither had a ruptured uterus. All of the babies whose mothers attempted VBAC had good outcomes. Wow! So even the 4 that had cesareans, they didn't have a ruptured uterus. So 100% of their VBACs had positive outcomes, and only 4 had C-sections. We knew some Amish women who had a cesarean for their first babies and then had 12 or 13 VBACs with no problem. My partner and I believe that our good outcomes are partly due to the fact that none of the women's labors was induced or augmented with oxytocin or other prostaglandins. Sorry, the sun's going down, so if the lighting gets like really shadowy, it's because I have all my lamps on this side and no light on this side, so sorry about that. Maybe if I move this one. over here. Oh wow, it looks all spooky. I don't know. We'll figure it out. We know that in the event of an emergency, we can telephone our regional hospital, describe the emergency, and start our way into the hospital, knowing that the staff is preparing itself and the operating room for our clinical arrival. Our decision to incision time is less than that of many hospitals. Oh gosh, that light is way worse. Sorry, guys. Yeah, we'll keep the light on one side. Instead of 20 billion shadows, just one. Been able to provide out-of-hospital care for the vast majority of women who wanted VBACs with us. The following list of conditions cover those who do not feel comfortable about attending at a hospital setting. Women who placenta overlies the previous uterine scar. So they do the incision super, and then on the inside, the placenta is right where that incision is. Women who have had 3 or more previous C-sections, if they have not already had a vaginal birth since. So if they had 3 and then they had a vaginal, they'll still take them. But if they've had 3 C-sections and they haven't had a vaginal birth, they didn't feel comfortable taking them. And women who had previous classical incisions, if they have not already had vaginal since. So previous classical incisions, I'm assuming that's like the old way of doing it, just like completely cutting the stomach. They don't do that anymore unless it's like a complete emergency. We at the FMC will continue to attend VBACs as long as women want them. We must first make sure that we rule out placenta implant over a previous uterine scar. If we discover a case of placenta accreta or percreta by ultrasound, we never have, we arrange for further care with the most highly skilled OB we can find. Maximing, another home birth practice with a high rate of success in VBAC is that of Dr. Meyer Einstein of Chicago. In 27 years of practice and more than 14,000 home births, there have been more than 1,000 VBAC. More than 90% of the women who attempted to give vaginally were able to do so. It would be possible to develop a system throughout the United States in which VBAC women labor at home in birth centers, in small hospitals closely attended by midwives and family members. Such a system would require close working relationships and good communication among all the caregivers involved. Maximizing your chance to have a VBAC. Probably the strongest action you can take to improve your chance of having a VBAC is to pick a caregiver who has a VBAC rate of 70% or more. There are lots of practitioners out there who have achieved such rates. Some have become nervous since the ACOG recommendations changed, but there are plenty of OBs and midwives who realize that the evidence changed and who have had a commitment to providing women with the kind of care they desire. In short, hire someone to help you who believes in VBAC. Avoid labor induction and augmentation if there's pressure for you to dilate more quickly. Try to get into water or walk the hall range for some privacy. Refuse to take a IV and make sure that you are well fed before you get to the hospital. If that's where we're going. Try to find one where drinking and eating is allowed in labor. So try to find a place you can birth that you can eat and drink while you're in labor. Finally, keep vaginal exams to a minimum. Skilled practitioners can usually clearly estimate dilation by your breathing and body language. If there is any pressure on you to have an epidural, try to resist it. There are instances in later labor where one can help, should not be used early in VBAC labor, in my opinion, and that's IMA talking. Last, spend pregnancy loving your uterus and your baby. I mean this literally. Positive energy makes a birth outcome more likely, so go for it. Love heals, and that I really believe. So that is all of chapter 12. Chapter 13 is choosing a caregiver. So that'll be tomorrow, which is Wednesday, and a short chapter. So we'd get through the whole thing one day. I hope you guys have a good evening. Sorry this lighting kind of got weird, but I hope you guys have a good one. Thank you guys so much for joining.